Our next talk is by Dr. Julie Woodward. She'll be speaking on laser resurfacing and managing pigmentation issues.
Okay, good morning. I am a professor of ophthalmology and associate professor of dermatology at Duke, and I was asked to give this ambitious talk on laser resurfacing to oculofacial surgeons. And it's ambitious because there's about 300 to 400 lasers and energy-based devices that you can put on the skin. So I tried to focus the talk some on lasers and some on the prerequisite to doing lasers, which is really managing skin care and hyperpigmentation, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So I love it when patients ask, Doc, you going to burn my face to get rid of those wrinkles? And we say, no, we don't burn, we vaporize. So that's what a laser does. It can heat the skin so quickly in less than the thermal relaxation time of the skin that it vaporizes it without really coagulating the skin and causing a scar or a burn. So here's a little video just showing an ablative laser, and a CO2 lasers and erbium lasers are your ablative lasers. And this is just a fractionated laser. We always have to have protective eyewear, metal shields, a smoke evacuator, sign on the door, and this is just showing this fractionated laser on the forehead, and then we go around the eyes. And I have all these different devices here. There's ablative lasers, non-ablative, vascular lasers, tattoo, microfocused ultrasound, radiofrequency, and IPL. So what you really have to do when you're deciding about lasers is, do you want to do the laser, or do you want to have an extender do the laser? What are your state regulations? What kind of things will the state allow extenders to do in your office, or do you want to be the provider? I like ablative lasers because they go very well with the blepharoplasty, and our patient population healing from blepharoplasty doesn't mind healing from an ablative CO2 laser at the same time. Maybe you have patients that want to heal faster. You may want to do an intense pulse light or something else. So just like I said, just shows this going around the mouth. So like Famita, I like the Barbie image. She's 59 years old now, and she's coming in for these procedures. And you also have to think about your practice. So in the United States, my patient population is lighter skin, so I'm doing more fractionated. This is a colleague of mine from India. She has obviously a darker skin population, so she pre-treats everybody with a little antioxidants and hydroquinones, and she uses more non-ablative lasers. So you have to think about what you're going to do pre-op. CO2 lasers, what's important to know is that when they're traditional, the fluence is very low, only 10 to 6 joules per centimeter squared. But when you go up to a fractional laser, you're shrinking that spot into this teeny little 120 micron. That fluence is actually 900 joules per centimeter squared or more. So what you see on the histology is with the tiny little spots, you vaporize these little tunnels deep into the skin. With 120. With the 300, you won't go as deep, but you'll go a little broader. So it may take a little bit longer to heal an epithelial eyes, just a couple of days. So this is 3 passes of a traditional CO2. First pass can go all the way up to the lashes. Second pass, keep away from the tarsal plate. Third pass, you can go over the festoon area, and you get a nice result. And that's a 1-year post-op, so I was pretty happy, and it's important because she was my mother-in-law. We did a little study measuring with a handheld reflectometer the amount of pigment that can flare up after laser. And it's not common to have a lot of pigment issues, but you have to be prepared for when they happen because those will be your nightmare patients driving you crazy. So we use this handheld reflectometer, which has been proven to be just about as good as the $10,000 gold standard mexometer. And you can measure the amount of pigment. If you're not familiar with the Fitzpatrick skin scale, 1 to 2 is a light skin, 3 is more like my coloring, 4 is Asian, Hispanic, 5 light-skinned Africans, and then dark-skinned Africans are type 6. And what we saw after periocular laser was pigment and erythema flares up for about 6 weeks, and then it generally tapers down with our handheld reflectometer with a few outliers that I will show you. So some take-homes are, be prepared to deal with this kind of patient, Asian patient. This is actually from my fellowships, really old slide, 20 years old. But it'll always go away, but you have to know how to manage it with anti-pigment agents. So know that in the melanocytes, there's about 32 melanocytes per every basal cell in the skin. The melanin is made deep in the melanosome, and then it is packaged in the melanocytes and carried up to the keratinocytes where it stains the top surface of your skin. And so that just kind of shows that little cascade, made down, low, transferred up. There's 14 steps in the production of melanin. 3 are inside the melanocyte, 11 are outside the melanocyte, and only 10 of them can be affected by topical agents because 4 of them happen too fast. A lot of lighteners, there can be prescriptions or over-the-counter, and then there's only 1 bleach that will actually lighten with staining the keratinocyte. So PIH can happen not just from lasers, but energy-based devices, chemical peels, UV light, visible light, acne, all these things. This is my money slide. I spent a ton of time researching this, putting it together, because I'm a nerd and I really like to know exactly what all these chemical names are and how they are lightening the skin. So the things that block tyrosinase are the hydroquinones, your azelaic acid, the kojic acid, niacinamide. Some things stimulate the turnover of the keratinocytes, like the retinoids and the hepes. If you block copper interaction with kojic acid or vitamin C, L-ascorbic acid, that blocks the melanin production. You can block the maturation with the arbutin. You can block the protease with these soybeans and tryptans. You can inhibit plasmin, which blocks prostaglandins, which is the hot nutrient-xamic acid. And then you can reduce alpha-melanocyte-stimulating hormones with beta-carotene. So if you want to take a picture of that slide, go right ahead. I worked hard on it. Just don't take pictures of the patients, please. So this just kind of reiterates the prescriptions, which are hydroquinone, 4%, the tretinoids, azelaic acid, and then the combo treatments. Some molecules are easy to get into the skin because they're small, and if they're big molecules, they have to formulate them very specially with reverse emulsions and things to get them to go into the skin. Hydroquinone was the old gold standard, but it can be dangerous. It can cause permanent staining, ochronosis of the skin, and sun sensitivity. Then you have your retinoids, which, like I said, help with the exfoliation. We have over-the-counters, like the retinols, retinaldehydes, and the adapalene you can now buy over-the-counter, and then the prescriptions, like the tretinoin, Tazorac, and all these things. Tranexamic acid is kind of the interesting one. They discovered it when treating for menorrhagia that it lightened the skin. They were treating patients with painful periods, but they were giving 3,000 milligrams a day. And now it's really hot to give a patient 325 or 650 milligrams orally a day, and that will actually decrease the pigment production. And I've had some good luck with this. The dermatologists are hot on using this. Some people actually put it into their tumescent solutions to decrease bleeding. And it can cause, there's one patient in a study of 600 patients that had a DVT, so people always kind of worry about that. It comes in topicals and then the oral. And then this is a patient of mine who's a hem-onc specialist. Obviously hyperpigmentation around her eyes, and I was kind of nervous about giving it to her because she's a hematologist oncologist, and I said, should I do it? And she's like, oh, please, give me the script. I have no problem taking that myself. So I said, great, you make me feel a million times better. So she's doing well. You can also take oral fern block. You can buy this at a lot of different drugstores. Supposedly gives you some SPF protection. And then antioxidants are the huge one. They not only block against UV rays, but there's some pretty interesting studies where they put it on the arm and stuck the arm in a pollution container with ozone and did biopsies for certain markers and found that it actually blocks these biological markers that are showing damage from pollution. So that's pretty exciting new research actually done in North Carolina. The vitamin C has to be very acidic or it won't go into the skin. And this is Dr. Pinnell who invented it. It has to be L-ascorbic acid. It can't be ascorbyl palmitate like the stuff in the cheap drugstore. It can't be the vitamin pill version, so your patient can't crack it and put it on their skin. It takes 3 days to get into the cell, and it has to work in the aqueous environment to protect the DNA, so the lipid-based ones don't always protect the DNA. It takes 3 or 4 days to wash out of the skin. So it's important to coach your patient on how to really use it. You can put it on directly after laser. Dermatologist and I published this paper. It's safe to put on immediately after a laser. And there's a lot of other really good antioxidants like the green teas, niacinamide, coffee berry, ginseng, resveratrol, other things like that. Now, the lignin peroxidase, you can't buy it now because the company's in flux being sold, but it's the only bleach, and I love this product because it works fast. It works in about 2 weeks. You put the lignin peroxidase on, and then you activate it with a weak alcohol. A couple minutes after you put the first product on, it actually breaks up the melanin that is in the keratinocyte. I love that product. I hope we can get it again soon. It's very safe. This is a study we did at Duke, just showing with our mexometer how it went down, and then we stopped it. The pigment started to slowly build back up. This just shows how to use a mexometer. This is an African-American patient who had a light skin laser. We just put him on the lignin peroxidase, and he got a lot better by 3 months. It's been studied against the gold standard of hydroquinone and found to be pretty equivalent at 12 weeks. And this just shows sunscreen. If you could see sunscreen, the traditional sunscreens, absorptive sunscreens, if you could see UV light, it would look like black pigment on your skin. And you can see on the picture on the right, this is what we see with our naked eye. We don't see the sunscreen, like my trusty fellow who wrote Go Duke on her head here. So we have to have other things besides just sunscreen. That's why antioxidants are important, because we can't block the visible light, but the antioxidants can help that. So the ancient Egyptians knew it was important to protect. That's one of the reasons they put kohl around the eyes to prevent light from coming in the eyes. So here's some different cases I'll just run through with some different topicals. This patient was a Caucasian, no problems with this little cocktail of antioxidants, a compound that has ellagic acid in it, and retinols. I'm not allowed to use brand names, so we're keeping everything CME appropriate. So this is a patient who had a ton of lenticos. I apologize, she had makeup on in the first picture. I just saw her last week. She's a year out. She says her lenticos are 90% improved after her laser and a cocktail of topicals. This patient had 10% Ethiopian heritage. She flared up with a bunch of pigment, eventually went down with ellagic acid and the tranexamic acid. And another African-American patient here who got better with topical tranexamic acid and the ellagic acid combo. This is an interesting patient. I just threw him because he had a skin graft that was too stiff to do a Z-plasty. Put a skin graft on, the whole thing peeled off. Didn't know what was going to happen here. It repigmented, and then we used him some topicals, and he was happy with his ectropion repair in the long run. Interesting patient, African-American, not a complainer at all, sweetest lady in the world. After a week, she shows up looking like this, having contact dermatitis. I was like, why? You could have called me. I thought she would hyperpigment something crazy. She didn't want to use a lot of products. She actually did okay. An Asian patient who did well on the retinols and didn't particularly hyperpigment. Another one who I didn't have problems with is sometimes Asians can hyperpigment, like this one, who wanted laser to take off this huge lentigo, possibly some melasma. She was the bane of my existence for 4 months. I gave her every single oral and topical product I had available. She was making my email nightmare, coming in complaining. It was very helpful to have the handheld mixometer because we could measure her skin every time she came in, and even though she was frustrated, she could see the pigment, I could tell her, your numbers are going down, your numbers are going down. Finally, she came back at 4 months, thrilled. She walked in and said, the pigment's gone, and then she moved to obsess about the small wrinkle on her upper lip that I could not see. A Thai patient without particular problems. I'm going to buzz through because running out of time, I want to show you some other things, Persians, Middle Easterns, all the similar cocktails loyal patients do well. So laser blepharoplasty, I was trained by Sterling Baker, who was the godfather of laser blepharoplasty and laser resurfacing for ophthalmologists, and I just want to show very briefly, I love doing my bless with the laser still. I'm going to buzz through the video. This is a new novel technique we're doing on patients. It's so much fun. We use the incisional handpiece to turn up the eyelashes. We curl them up just by putting a little heat energy at the base. You can see the eyelashes stand up. We published a little paper on this in combo with blepharoplasty. This is what it looks like when you finish immediately. This is a patient who's had no blepharoplasty at all. She just had the treatment you can see here on her right eye and not yet on the left eye. This is just a few seconds after we did it. We took a picture, and here she is at a month out. We did a TV news story on her. She is so excited. She was using curls and curlers and permanents and all kind of stuff and spending thousands of dollars on her eyelashes, and now she's permanently got them curled up a month out. Really happy. Yep. Really fun. RF microneedling punches little microneedles in at the same time as RF radiofrequency. You could get a little bit of bruising with this. I think it works okay for festoons, not great. It's great on the neck because you can't laser the neck. This is a patient who had laser around the eyes, microneedling, radiofrequency on the rest of their face. So you can see the lasers is going to take a lot longer to heal than that RF microneedling, which bypasses the epithelium. This patient had a cocktail of all these things, laser and microneedling. Microfocused ultrasound does okay for festoons. I would not say it's great. I pounded this lady to the point where she was actually bruised, modest improvement. I've taken off tattoos around the eyes with Q-switch lasers. Works great, just have to be very careful, obviously, with eye shields. A lot of hype about using lasers and IPL to treat vascular congestion on rosacea. This really does help with the dry eyes because it decreases that release of all those cytokines around the eyes. Most of the cornea people that do this love it, say it really helps. I don't do that, but there's some papers showing that it works really well. You just have to be really careful of an intense pulse light around the eye because the light scatters. It's not monochromatic and directional like a laser is, and so you have to be really good with your eye shields because it could spread into the choroid or the iris. These are some results from Adam Shiner, who did some IPL around the eyes and has improvement of patients' dry eyes. There's a laser in the works that's not in trials in the US yet, but in foreign countries, trying to make a brown eye into a blue eye. So far, they've done this without too many problems with pigment dispersion. It'll be interesting to see where this goes. And I'm going to stop right there on time.
Julie, can you real quick, can you go back to the slide that you worked hard on? So I think some people wanted
Everybody wants my money slide.
pic of.
I just love that slide. I really worked hard tracking many. And the patients love it because they come in with their little goodie bag, before, and they've all tried all this topical stuff before they've gotten the guts to come in and talk about a laser. And it's really nice if you can pick up their little products and say, well, this licorice is what's lightening your skin, and this arbutin is doing this, and you can pick out the little chemicals in their bottle, and then they have all this new trust in you because you're such an expert, you know what all these little ingredients are. So yeah, there you go.
Look at that. Your hard work paid off.
Yeah. Now, most of it comes from that article in the JA, but I added a lot of my own research to it, so there you go.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Julie.